Well, hello. My name is John Bonner. I'm a missionary, a pastor, and the director of Calvary Chapel Bible College in Cajamarca, Peru, in South America. I am honored that you would listen to my unique testimony, and I pray that it would be a blessing and an encouragement to you. Chapter 9. Death of a Vision. Unless a grain of wheat falls into the ground and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it produces much grain. Jesus. John 12:24. Is God finished with me? Tears rolled down my cheeks. I had never known such depths of despair. My heart was on the mission field, but I was stuck in the U.S. We were in debt, scraping to make ends meet. Tragically, my father and sister had both fallen victim to violent crimes, and now Mom was gone. Orphaned and in debt, I was feeling very much alone. One evening in our apartment in Mexico City, I had been meditating on Habakkuk 2:2, where God instructs the prophet to write the vision, make it plain on tablets, so that he may run who reads it. Something big had been stirring in my heart, and I sensed that God was wanting me to define it, to write it down, and to make it plain. There were 4 parts to the vision. 1. Start a Bible school, similar to the one I had attended in Twin Peaks, to prepare Latin American believers in the Word. 2. Start a missionary training school, similar to the language school in Alamos, where missionaries can properly be prepared to serve God in Spanish-speaking countries. 3. Host visiting evangelistic teams, similar to what we were presently doing in Mexico City. And 4. Have an agricultural ministry, similar to the ranch in Alamos, where the students could study and work and provide for their own needs. With fear and trembling, I handed the now typed 4-fold vision to Pastor Chuck Smith on our following visit to the United States. Within a few days, I was sitting down with a missions pastor at Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa, who told me that he and Chuck read the vision and it brought tears to their eyes. Pilar and I returned to Mexico excited about the possibility of something big happening. (1987 through 1989). Tehuacan, Puebla, Mexico. Mexico City's sprawling metropolis was obviously not the ideal place to start a ranch ministry, so we inquired with good friends and fellow missionaries, Jim and Krista Foote, to see if they would allow us to join them in their work in rural Tehuacan, and see if it might be the place where the vision could unfold. Pilar, Michelle, and I soon found ourselves renting a spacious apartment there where we could host visiting guests. We also rented a large office where the school would function. Things took off exceptionally well. The Bible school immediately gained an initial enrollment of 50 students. 2 families and a single young man came to study with us in the missionary training school. Several pastors and teams visited during that time to do evangelistic outreaches with us throughout the region. It was in Tehuacan where we received another blessing from the Lord, the birth of our second child, Jason John Bonner, on October 18, 1989. This time I was able to be in the operating room when the doctors performed the cesarean delivery. At a time before ultrasound and gender predictor test, I saw my son come into the world and joyfully shared the news with my anesthesia-induced wife laying half-conscious on the operating table. "It's a boy!" I exclaimed. "It's a boy?" she groggily inquired. "Yes, it's a boy," I answered. "Oh, it's a boy." We both smiled and sang in unison as my wife slowly drifted back to sleep. Our baby boy was all boy, quite different than his feminine older sister. He loved balls and cars, which he pronounced tsars. He had exceptional coordination and excelled in sports. In his young teens, Jason taught himself to play the guitar and used his God-given voice and musical abilities as an anointed songwriter and musician. When still living at home, Jason was a tremendous support to his parents in ministry as the church worship leader and youth pastor. As quickly as the new ministry in Tehuacan began, it also came to a screeching halt, due for the most part to financial woes. Someone had inadvertently misinformed me. The missionaries were exempt from paying taxes. The IRS, however, was not convinced of this. I received a surprise notice in the mail that I owed back taxes plus fines and interest. We had recently charged some purchases on a credit card on a trip to the States, and together with the tax bill, we owed just under $1,000. Not an easy payment on a missionary budget. At that time, I received a phone call from Pastor Ron Corsine in Texas, whose church had been supporting us for years. Ron explained to me that a family from his church was about to go out as missionaries, and the church had decided to send them the support that they had previously designated to us. I told him confidently, "No problem, Ron. Where God guides, God provides." We received another call from Pastor Mike Reed, the assistant pastor of our home church in Southern California. He informed me that problems had occurred and the church would soon be closing. "I am very sorry, John, but this will be the last support check you will be receiving from us." I told him, less confidently this time, "No problem, Mike. Where God guides, God provides." Rosa wrote us a very nice letter letting us know that she herself was returning to the mission field, but she would no longer be able to support us as missionaries as she had been. I reminded her, "Where God guides, He provides," sort of wondering to myself if He really would. All of this coincided with the cesarean birth of our son Jason. Before we could take him home, we had to pay the hospital bill, the gynecologist, the anesthesiologist, and the pediatrician. Plus, we desperately needed Huggies. Here we were, now a family of 4, trying to survive on the mission field with increasing bills and a diminishing income. "Lord," I prayed one morning, "what do we do? Do you want us to stay here and trust you? Or do you want us to return to the States, find work, and pay off our bills?" I looked up to heaven with a lump in my throat. I cringed at the idea of having to leave the mission field. The vision had a great start, but we were definitely digressing financially. That particular morning, I opened my Bible to the portion of Scripture I was to read in Mark's Gospel. I started in chapter 5, and when I read down to verse 19, "Go home to your loved ones and tell them all that the Lord has done for you and how He has had mercy on you." Well, I had my answer. I looked to heaven and asked, "So you want us to go home?" The answer was very direct. "Go home to your loved ones." We closed down the Bible school and the language school, sold our belongings, and loaded up our VW van and drove 1,700 miles to Cottonwood, Arizona, where my mom lived. This was truly one of the most difficult times in my life. Didn't I hear God's voice? Didn't He give me a vision? What have I done wrong for God to bless me and only take it away? In my heart, the vision had died. (1990 through 1993), Cottonwood, Arizona. We hopped out of the van and ran up to my mom's one-bedroom apartment, knocked on the door and said, "Surprise! God sent us here to live with you, Mom." She so lovingly took us in. The next day we had lunch with Pastor McMeyer and his wife Kathy from Calvary Chapel of the Verde Valley, where my mom was attending. During our meal, Mick asked why we were home, and I told him the story of our compounding debt and decreased income, mixed with tears. Mick started to chuckle. "It is interesting, John, how God works. I have been praying for an assistant pastor, someone to oversee our crisis pregnancy center, and to develop our missions program at the church. I believe you are that man." Mick asked me to pray about it, and I did, in all of 5 minutes. It was obvious God was closing a door to Mexico and opening a door to ministry now in the small town of Cottonwood in the heart of Arizona. The church board decided to ordain me as a minister right away. Inside, I laughed at the suggestion. I am far from being a pastor, I reminded myself. I have no pastoral training, preparation, or experience. I'm not even a real missionary. I just went to Mexico initially for the tacos and to find a wife. Well, I suppose soon enough they will find out the mistake they are making. The Verde Valley was a wonderful place to raise Michelle and Jason. Grandma was there, and we had great support from our church family. It was in Cottonwood that the Lord blessed us with an unexpected surprise. Pilar was expecting. Joshua David Bonner arrived and became a part of our family on November 4th, 1991. Joshua has a very special love for people and is always so fun to be with. He is a compassionate, giving, and caring person, even from young childhood. Growing up in the ministry, our son developed a passion for coffee and later learned the principles of being an award-winning barista when he was overseeing our campus coffee shop in Lima. Not only is he a hard worker and an excellent pourer, but a stellar daddy, blessing Pilar and me with 2 precious little girls, Eleanor and Amelia. Our time of ministry at Calvary Chapel of the Verde Valley was as challenging as it was wonderful. I learned a lot about pastoral ministry, having been flung into it. I had an office, a desk, and started counseling right away. Mick Meyer taught me pastoral ministry, just as he had learned it from Pastor Bob Grenier, who had learned it from Pastor Chuck Smith. The church could only partially employ me, so I had to find work as a window cleaner to help offset our family income. Pastor Mick admitted to the board that John is working for peanuts and reminded them that I should come on full-time as soon as possible. The credit card debt we carried from Mexico only increased with the relocation to Arizona. We moved out of Mom's 1-bedroom apartment and had to pay first and last and a deposit in order to get our own. A refrigerator was purchased, and an oven, and beds, of course, along with the window cleaning equipment I needed for my new job, and it all went on credit. God saved me from a pitfall common to ministers in similar situations. After giving premarital counseling to a couple for several weeks, the wedding day approached and I was to perform my first official ceremony at the church. After the reception, the groom's father handed me an envelope which contained $200 cash, which was very helpful. 1 month later, I did my second wedding, and a $300 honorarium was given to me. Extra income of $500 in just 1 month's time? Not too bad. The thought occurred to me to print some wedding specialist business cards and start passing them around to see if I could do this as a side job. God stopped me and asked me what I was thinking. My heart in service to Him was warped. I was thinking of making a lucrative business out of the ministry. Unfortunately, this happens quite often among ministers, and it is wrong. 1994 through 1999, Twin Peaks, California. One of my many responsibilities at Calvary Chapel of the Verde Valley was to oversee the youth ministry, which at one time required my participation at the Youth Workers Retreat at the Calvary Chapel Conference Center in Twin Peaks, nestled in the beautiful San Bernardino Mountains of Southern California. It was there that I bumped into Mitch Denny, a longtime Arizona buddy who had just moved to the area with his family of 6 to attend Calvary Chapel Bible College, which shared the conference center's facilities. "Mitch, what are you doing here?" I asked, very surprised and delighted to see him. "John, I just sold my pesticide business in Arizona, and we decided to take a step of faith and move to California to attend Bible college. The Lord has been so faithful to perfectly provide all of our needs." What Mitch went on to describe stirred my heart. He told me how God had miraculously provided firewood for them from an anonymous giver at just the right moment, and how he was blessing their steps of faith. Oh, how I longed to watch the Lord do this again in my life. Receiving a weekly paycheck from the church and being a part-time, self-employed window cleaner was not the exciting life of dependency on Him that I had once enjoyed in Mexico. I went home determined to follow Mitch's example. During our time in Arizona, I was able to secure a loan for low-income families to build a house. Watching the 3-bedroom dwelling evolve from blueprints to an actual building was exciting. Pilar and I chose the carpet color, drapes, and the home's unique features. It was wonderful to move into our own place, and I was proud to say I had provided a home for my wife and kids. And then I came home from the retreat with the announcement. We are packing and moving to California to attend Bible college. My poor wife enjoyed her brand new home for only 3 months and happily followed me to California. It seemed we were already watching the Lord provide in supernatural ways as we took this new step of faith. A friend in Cottonwood bought my window cleaning business, and a staff member at the college in California blessed us with the news that if I taught the Spanish class at the college, we would have free tuition, room, and board for our family of 5. It was an awesome deal. We packed our belongings in a U-Haul truck and set out for California to enroll in Bible college at Twin Peaks. When we arrived, we were greeted by an embarrassed young woman who had previously told us about the tremendously generous offer the Bible college had given us. She said, "John, I am so sorry. I misunderstood the offer. Your tuition will be covered by the Spanish classes you teach, but you'll have to find a place to live and pay for your and your family's food." Uh-oh. We quickly found a 3-bedroom cabin to rent about a mile from the college. The rent was high, but if I found other students to share the rooms, we would only pay a portion. Our debt load was increasing with the rent and deposits, and it was obvious I had to find employment now, as well as study full-time at the college. As an experienced window cleaner, I was blessed to find a final semester student at the college who also had a window cleaning business. He was planning on relocating after graduation, and he offered to sell me his business. One day, as he was introducing me to his accounts in Orange County, I noticed my brother Keith's Super Pets retail store at the same intersection of a window cleaning account I had just acquired. I decided to walk across the street to see if Keith was there. He was! "John, what are you doing here?" I explained about having acquired a new business, and Keith asked me if I would consider doing his windows too. "In fact," my brother said, "I'm looking for someone to clean the floors in all 4 of our Super Pet stores." I agreed to clean, buff, and wax the immense floors every Friday night. It was perfect. I could study all week, work graveyard Friday nights, and rest over the weekends. Plus, my generous brother paid me very well. I loved every minute of Bible college. I had longed to study the scriptures and theology ever since the day I saw Juan Domingo's overstuffed notebooks in Mexico City. It was a dream come true. I graduated with an associate degree in theology on May 31st, 1996, and was honored to be invited by the staff and student body to give the commencement speech at graduation. I shared the stage that evening with Pastor Chuck Smith, who was the keynote speaker. After graduation, I was hired by Calvary Chapel Costa Mesa to oversee housekeeping at the beautiful Twin Peaks Conference Center. We ran a staff of 5 to clean the large facilities, which included 71 hotel-style rooms on the 25-acre property. My best friends during that time were a mop, a bucket, and a vacuum cleaner. My responsibility also included running the soundboard and recording excellent teaching by top speakers who were invited to share at the retreats, such as David Gusick, Gail Irwin, and David Hawking. Many senior pastors of prominent churches got to know me and were grateful for the assistance they received in their retreats. I was also blessed to work under the godly leadership of Pastor Jeff Gill, my immediate supervisor. I must admit, however, that I was kicking and screaming the entire 9 years we were in the States. I was not where I wanted to be. I wanted to be on the mission field, teaching the Bible. In my heart, I remember resenting missionaries and the word missions because I felt like I was stuck back home. I had debt, I had obligations, and I just could not get any traction to get back on the mission field. While Chuck Smith's wisdom rings true, where God guides, He provides, I was discovering the opposite of that truth. When God does not provide, He is also guiding us to remain in the States for 9 years, seemingly kicking against the goads. In hindsight, I see the Lord's hand placing me in a very strategic place at just the right time. I was re-inspired by hearing Mitch Danny's reliance on the Lord and his steps of faith. God allowed me the opportunity to go to Bible college. He provided work through cleaning windows, which took me to a new floor cleaning trade with my brother Keith, who practically supported our family through college. Then, being hired to assist churches with their retreats and personally meeting gifted ministers who would all have instrumental roles in my future ministry. These were all part of His plan. 2 other significant events took place during this time of waiting. God allowed me to visit South America for the first time, and He inspired me to write a book. Both would have far-reaching ramifications in my future life and ministry. These are too much of a coincidence to be mere coincidences. The myth of coincidence. Are you reminded of the obvious hand of the Lord leading you through life, opening one door and then another, even as you are saying, "Lord, you are not answering my prayers"? Do you thank Him for His guidance and that steady hand that rests upon your shoulder?